My name is Nikki Valila. I'm the Director of Training at My Life, My Choice. Hopefully something we say will help you in your journey working with the foster kids.
Okay, my name is Audrey Morrissey. I'm the Associate Director of My Life, My Choice. I'm also a survivor of the commercial sex industry. And one of the most important things that I want to highlight is language. Terms like teen prostitute, and I have to be honest, those words, even after being out of the life for years, are still very offensive to me. She's a slut, she's a hoe, she does this because she likes it. It makes them think that it's her choice. And one of the things that I want to do today is really help anyone who will be listening to this video understand that this is not a choice that a child makes. When I think about the word teen prostitute, that I hear a lot of people connect that with is being promiscuous. And of course, that word makes me cringe because this promiscuous also leads people to believe that the child likes it. I don't know about anyone else, but I know if I had an intention of dating someone and that person said to me, "Oh yeah, Audrey, by the way, it requires that you have sex with me 10 to 20 times a day." I personally would get away from that person as quickly as I possibly could. That was the part of being in the life that was the most degrading. That was the part of being in life that really made me feel inhumane. That was the part of being in the life that led me to figuring out different ways to disassociate, to not be present. And I also think about the days of having to, attempt to scrub them off of me. So I share that piece for people to understand. If you can't have sex with 10 to 20, with a person you love 10 to 20 times, how could anyone use the word, say a girl is promiscuous and she loves having sex with 10 to 20 strangers? It's not possible.
And really reiterate that when we're talking about the commercial sexual exploitation of children, we're talking about kids under the age of 18. So what is it? Well, it's a form of child sexual abuse, and we'll talk a little later about what do you do with this stuff when you think it's happening? Who do you tell? But being that it's a form of child sexual abuse, it is a crime. And what you might see in your foster child is coming home with new things, or them talking about, they just got their nails done, or highlights in their hair, or maybe a new phone or some jewelry. It could even be a bus ride home, or even something as small as a slice of pizza. And oftentimes the child's not seeing that money. But what they're seeing is that small token, that thing of value that's important to them, that makes them feel special, that makes them stay, that makes them believe this person cares about them. And let's be honest, I used to work in programs with kids, and I can imagine being a foster parent. When kids go missing, whether it's for a few hours and they don't come home from curfew, or maybe they stayed out all night, or they're gone for a few days, oftentimes when they come back, it's not roses. They're angry, they're usually exhausted, they're tired, and they're usually not very happy to see you. And maybe your first reaction is, get out. You need to stay somewhere else. I don't actually know if I can handle this. Is this what I signed up for? But remembering that behind that is a whole bunch of trauma, and recognizing that at that point that child doesn't identify as a victim. And I think it's really hard to remember that in the moment, but if you can take a step back, and we always say, take a breath and just sit for a moment and recognize that it's really not about you, and it's about them. And most importantly, the message we're going to continue to tell you is to not give up.
I grew up in Dorchester. I lived there up until I was 12, and then I moved to Malden. I had no friends. I was always the mean person, because when I was in elementary school, I kind of shut down from everyone, because I used to get made fun of all the time for being a tomboy, and I don't know, people just used to make fun of me. And then when I came to Malden, I felt like it was a fresh start, kind of, where I was I don't need to tell anyone about me, not even my name. People would be like, what's your name? And I just would look away. Or and I was really shut off to teachers too. Even if they try to talk to me, I would just have the worst attitude ever.
Oh my gosh, so one time I was gonna run away to New York. I was gonna take a train to New York. I was so fed up. I was probably 16 or something. I didn't have crap. I didn't have no money. I had a backpack, maybe like a debit card with like $50. And I called her and I was like, yo, I'm out. She was like, you're nuts. Get your ass back here. Do not leave. There's no train to New York anyway. And I was like, there is a train. I'm looking at the schedules right now. And she's like, don't get on it. What are you going to do over there? There's nothing for you. Like, and I was just like, it took me an hour to like figure out like, okay, she's right.
I was basically judged, and not by other kids, because I wasn't like the type of person to get bullied, but I was bullied by the staff of my school. Like, they seen me as someone like that didn't go to class, was, like in the street doing bad stuff. Like, they would try to get me in, like they would find any way possible just to try to get me in trouble, because they had like this image of me like being like the worst person ever and doing all sorts of things.
The other thing I want to talk about is the language that we like to use today, and that is commercial sexual exploitation of children. When you use that language, people will say they'll have empathy for that child. The first word that comes to mind when you change the language is victim. That this child, that this is something being done to the child. With language, we want people to understand, particularly if you're a foster parent of this child. And I know foster parents, anyone who really steps up to be a foster parent, like, it takes a lot to do that. And I would think that that person, someone who takes that role, really cares about people. And so what you want, if you have these children in your home, you want to make sure that these children are getting the right services. You also want to educate the child that this was commercial sexual exploitation, which means someone profited off the sale of the child.
And she would, post up for me, answer my calls, schedule everything. And I was never getting none of the money that she said she was going to be giving me. Like, I just felt disgusting after. That's why I couldn't do it sober. I had to smoke and I had to drink a little bit before I could do anything, because it used to make me feel so disgusting. No matter how much I showered, and it just felt so nasty. Just, oh my God.
There's so many different levels, and one of the other levels is to understand the different forms of commercial sexual exploitation of children. One of them is street prostitution. Now, most people, when you mention street prostitution, they'll think of, a woman in her 30s who's a drug addict who is selling herself for small amounts of money because she has a drug habit. But for the most part, most people, if they hear street prostitution, their visual is, it's not happening here, maybe just in the inner city. The reality is that our children are being sold on the internet. It's very hard to find our children. Their photos are taken, they're placed on an ad on the internet, and so that's how pimps are selling them now. And the other thing that pimps use is stripping. Sometimes the strip club is the introduction, because the pimp knows he's going to make more money selling her for sex than her being in a strip club. So a lot of times the strip clubs are just the introduction. The other thing I want to point out is gangs. I want to tell you, I've heard some horrific stories. One of the most recent, the gang members in the room, the girls on camera, and I couldn't think of anything more intimidating than to have a bunch of gang members in a room and have a young person stripping and dancing and performing all kinds of sex acts on herself, and at the same time having the buyer watching her. They have a way in which he has to put his credit card through. And I'm going to tell you, it's already humiliating to sleep with a bunch of strangers, but to have the gang members, the intimidation right in front of you. And so those are some of the stories that I've heard.
What makes kids vulnerable? I'm sure some of you are watching this going, but how do I know if that's happening to my foster kid? There are a few things you can pay attention to, some signs. So let's start with, they're under 18. That alone makes them at risk for lots of things. And let's be honest, all kids want to be grown and they want to be adults until it really happens. But age alone does put them at risk. I think another thing, and it's kind of crazy when you think about it, but independence. What kid, what teenager doesn't want more independence? They all do. They all want more time in the community. They want a later curfew. They want to stay out with their friends. They don't want you in their business. Stop asking questions. And then let's add in technology. What kid nowadays doesn't have some form of technology? Oftentimes it's more than one. It's the iPhone or the iPad or the iPod. And that access alone, even when they're not trying, puts them at risk for lots of different things and meeting the wrong people and going to the wrong places. The reality is it only takes a few minutes to meet the wrong person or to have something sound too good to be true, or to have that car that pulls up look just a little too good and that guy to be a little too cute. But being in the community alone definitely puts them at risk. It makes them vulnerable to lots of different things. How about relationships? What teenager, and God, it's getting younger and younger now, doesn't want to be in a relationship? Let's not talk about friendships. Let's focus on romantic relationships, dating, wanting to feel loved, wanting to be in love, wanting to feel like they belong. And I think all kids struggle with that at some point. And so when you put those factors together, wanting to be in love, wanting to feel in love, just wanting someone to make you feel special, being in the community alone, having access to an iPhone, iPad, laptop, all of those things. How about just wanting material things, right? What teenager doesn't want more? Or I guess when you think about all those things, who isn't at risk for being recruited, really? It could be anyone. Anybody's at risk.
Honestly, everything was perfectly fine leading up to like when I was 12 years old. That wasn't the beginning of everything, but like there was problems going on at the house or whatever, and like, you know, me and my dad would get into like fights and everything, and you know, I told my best friend at the time, and my best friend told her mom called the police, whatever, and then December 13th, 2013, DCF came to the house, and it was unexpected. They literally just called my dad, and they were like, hey, tell Norma to, you know, pack her stuff up, and all the other kids that had already taken the kids from school, and they were like, oh, we're coming, and we're gonna take custody of them, and my dad we were all like, damn, what the hell happened? And like, I knew why, and like, that made me so scared. Like, I was like, oh my God, this is all my fault. And so they came, and I tried running. I made it to like up the street before the police could get me. And then they told me that me and my sister were going into a foster home together, and that my brother was gonna go to a different foster home.
You know, when she first came, we often have talks. And, you know, I was talking to my son one day about what he wanted to be when he grew up. And she said, I don't even see my future. You know, she was like, I don't know. I don't even know what I want to be when I grow up. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And she said, you know, I just don't know what I want to be. And I said, well, you know, at this time she was in 8th grade. So I was like, you've got time, you know? And she was like, no, I don't see my future. So that like scared me.
At this point, like, I wasn't looking for anyone. I was just looking for things to just do to distract me from missing him. And that just led into bad things. This is awful.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I guess when I was like 15 and 16, that's when I started looking for like dad figures.
So, like, me being in school and having all that going on and knowing, like, all right, my grades aren't good. I have these people bullying me in school, like the principals and stuff like that. And then when I go home, my mom's crying, and I can't even talk to her. I can't even say a word to her. And on top of that, having an abusive father. So I was just like, I thought about like dying, but I was like, you know what, I just need to leave. I packed my stuff. I was like messed up in school, and they just made stuff at home even worse. So now I'm like going through something at home, and then school's not good. It made me like want to run away to a point where like I packed all my bags. I didn't even know where I was going. So yeah.
I was 12. Yeah, 12, 13. I don't know. My mom said I was doing drugs and bad things, but really I was just like running away just to like hang out with my friends after school or something, because she was so strict. She wouldn't let me like do crap. Being in programs, so I was very easily influenced by others and like their behavior.
I know as you're watching this, foster parents are saying, how do they get in? How does someone make a child do something like this? I've watched over the years girls befriending other girls and bringing them to their pimps. Who could befriend another teenage girl? Another teenage girl. And so I just wanted to kind of touch on that really quickly, being mindful to the befriending tactic, whether just the signs of if another girl is really kind of going out of her way to be nice and friendly, because a lot of times that's a tactic to get that child to run away with her from your home and take her to a pimp. Now, the two tactics that are really, really used a lot, one is force. That's kidnapping, rape, intimidation, threats. But the tactic that a child will give you the hardest time about when you try and help her is the seduction tactic. The seduction tactic is simply this: because the girl already knows him, or even if she doesn't, but if she really knows him and he's not a stranger, and seduction means simply he gets her to fall in love with him. He might buy her things no one else has ever bought her before. He might take her to places to eat and restaurants she's never been before. Her friends might say to her, well, wow, he's really nice to you. That's a nice guy. And so what happens 9 times out of 10 times, once he gets her to fall in love with him, and the seduction tactic can take a day, a week, a month, 2 months, 3 months. But this tactic is so powerful that the pimp has the time to invest in this child using this tactic, because he's going to get the best results. And what I mean by results, he's going to get this girl to make lots of money for him in the name of love. So that's what makes this tactic so powerful. So this young person thinks like, this person is really invested in me. No one has ever given me this much attention, given me so many nice things. I think I can do this for him just once. And once he gets her to do it once, then it becomes, you see how quick you got that money? You see how much you made? Took 30 minutes of your time. Imagine what we could have. We can move out of this apartment. We can get a house, nice cars. I'll take care of you. You see how much I love you and how much I love to do even more for you. Same with this young person. The love that he's given has numbed her. She's never felt this good about anything. You just think of being on a kind of a hamster wheel. And for myself, when the drugs really got out of control and really got really bad, I stayed on that wheel because I was chasing that good feeling that substances had given me in the beginning. Same with this young person. This pimp has made her feel loved. He's made her feel wanted. He's made her feel good about herself. And so she stays trapped on that hamster wheel, chasing a feeling, and a feeling that she's searched for all her life. And it's a feeling of love. The seduction tactic is the tactic where she's not going to say, that's my pimp. She's going to say, that's my man, or that's my boyfriend. And she's really not going to hear anything you have to say negative about him, because in the seduction tactic, he is making her see the world through his eyes, and he is already telling her that your foster parent doesn't care about you. So this tactic, this is one of the most powerful tactics that pimps use to recruit our children.
I ran away from that program in Haverhill and went all the way to Roxbury, and Blackie had told me, yo, like, I have a Like, I know someone who could like help you out, and they'll let you stay at their house. I already talked to her about it, and I was like, okay. So I went there, and I feel like I knew what I was getting myself into when I went there, because it was just like, I know no random lady is gonna let me stay at her house for free. Nobody's gonna do that, especially for some runaway. And so I lied about my age, and I told her, I was like, yeah, I'm 17 years old, and she was 23. And I mean, we were driving down Blue Hill Ave, and then he was complimenting me, saying, oh, you look really good, whatever, all this other shit. And then he was like, oh, you trying to make $100 right now? And I was like, yeah. I was like, of course, And it's like right there. And then I knew what I had to do for that money, of course. Like, I wasn't stupid. Because I had heard of this, and I'd known about it since I was way younger, but I just never thought that I'd be in that situation myself, And so, then there I was, the lady, like, I told her I didn't really know anything about all the way everything worked, and I mean, I knew I had heard about it, but she was explaining everything to me, and it didn't sound that bad. It doesn't. And to, like, this day, now that I look back at it, I'm just like, it really is bad, but it didn't sound that bad at the moment, because it's just easy money. Because, I mean, I wasn't very sexually active, but, like, I was being sexually active with, like, the people the person that I was in a relationship with at the time. So it was like, if I can do that, then, I mean, why not get paid for it, So, I mean, the lady, she was like, yeah, you're going to be getting a share of your money, whatever. And she seemed like a really nice person, she was a really nice person or whatever. But, like, that's, like, the first impression, So I didn't find out till, like, later that she used.
Our hope is not that we're terrifying you throughout this kind of conversation, but really opening your eyes to the realities of what's happening out there. Some aren't that obvious. Some of them are really subtle. And so the more you know, the better, hopefully, you'll be able to not only kind of see what's going on, but hopefully to start having some really important conversations with the kids that you're serving about your concerns and what you're seeing. And so some of those things are as simple as, when you get a new foster kid, with that child is a lengthy history of where they've been, the places they've stayed. And so knowing when you're getting that child that they've potentially been in many different placements. And in addition to that, if they've had a history of being missing from care for any period of time, whether, like I said, a weekend or a few nights or even a few weeks or months, is keeping that in the back of your mind as you're working with that child and understanding that there might be this urge or kind of itchiness to not stay still for a long period of time, really understanding and not forgetting that that's in their history, but also not making it the focal point of your relationship with that child. And the reality is, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But our hope is that we've given you some tools. And if you leave with nothing, they're open to having an honest conversation with them about your concerns. But unless your kiddo has a job and they're coming home with new things, whether that's new earrings or a new outfit or new pair of Jordans, or just new stuff that's really unexplained. And when you ask the questions, you're getting defensiveness and really kind of a vague explanation as to where those things came from. Chances are it's something you want to be paying attention to. I think some of the other things we see are, not all kids, but a lot of teenagers are fascinated with tattoos. And I don't know what it is about tattoos, but this idea of I'm going to get something you don't want me to get type thing, and it's my body, and taking ownership and saying, I did this, and what are you going to do about it? Oftentimes, most of the tattoos they're willing to throw in your face after they've done them against your wishes, or those aren't the ones we're talking about, although those might be horrifying. We're talking about the ones that you might notice subtly because their shirt sleeve, rolls up, or it's a hot day and maybe their shorts are a little short so you notice something. The one that when you ask, they quickly try to cover it, or they brush it off, or they change the subject, or they get defensive. Or maybe even they have a really good story about that tattoo and you're kind of thinking to yourself, nothing really seems to line up, But those are the types of tattoos you want to pay attention to. The ones they really don't want to talk about are dodging the bullet. For some kids, truancy from school can mean lots of red flags, lots of things that could be going on. But when you're seeing them coupled with some of these other things, these absolutely could be signs that the child that you're working with is being exploited and or groomed. Something you want to be paying attention to, but also not making the assumption they're just doing it to be a pain or to get in trouble, or they just don't like school, recognizing their pimp might be making them work. So it's always looking beyond what it really seems, because it could be so many other things. So think about for a minute, maybe she's not blowing off school just because she doesn't like math, or she just doesn't feel like it. Maybe she's blowing off school because the entire school knows what's been going on, what's been happening, and now there's a reputation or there's a name and it's unsafe. So keeping that in mind. I always say, anytime a teenager walks in with money that's unexplained, let's be honest, our kids don't have it cash. Most adults nowadays, I feel like all we have are debit cards, right? Credit cards. No one carries cash anymore. So a 15 or 16-year-old kid coming home, especially, they're not working, you're not giving them that money, and has unexplained $40, $60, $100. Really asking the question, where did they get that money? So unexplained amounts of cash, coming home with new stuff, starting to skip school. The tattoo thing is definitely something you want to pay attention to. Again, the older boyfriends, especially the ones that are gang affiliated or actually are in gangs, a lot of our girls say they're in the gang or he's my man. But what we know about those guys, anytime a 15-year-old feels comfortable with or says a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old guy is interested in her, the reality is it's very unlikely that it's for positive reasons, that there's usually something behind that. The other thing I want to add, and we see it a lot with our transgender youth, is hormone injections. And what we know is a lot of these kids, is a long process to get those types of drugs, to get that medication approved, therapy, counseling, different types of things that have to happen for that to occur. And the reality is if you're working or have a foster youth, that you might be noticing slight changes, whether that's physical changes or changes in their voice or in their appearance. Where are they getting those drugs? Where are they getting those injections? Where are they getting that money? And unfortunately for a lot of those kids, what they're doing is being sold in order to get the money to buy those things on the black market. And that in itself is a whole nother danger that lies out there. So keeping that in mind as well. But what about boys? What about those of you that have boys in their home? And I think the reality is it looks so different. But some of the things I want to say is the same risk factors exist for boys as girls. A lot of the same vulnerabilities. There's very little data out there right now around this issue, but what we know is about 10% of boys report having a pimp. So the benefit is they're not being pimped. The thing that's really scary is now you have a young person, 15, 16 years old, out on the streets with no one looking after them, no level of protection. And so it becomes their steady form of income, which makes it almost harder to get out because I'm actually keeping all the money, unlike our girls. And I think for our boys that are straight identified, think about the stigma and the barrier to even come forward to say, a grown man's been buying me. What does that mean for me? And the shame that might be attached to that.
Yeah, it's a red flag if you know that your foster child is hanging out with someone who's like, I'm going to say 5 years older than me, because like, bruh, back up. This is my child, she's 5 years younger than you, back up. Until they turn 21. Don't date them. I don't care if they're 18 already. Do not date them.
I think the message we want to leave you with is a message of hope, but also recognizing that if something's happening, your parents, you have that gut feeling, the one you never want to feel, the one that wakes you up at 2 a.m. because you think your kid got in a car accident or something happened to somebody. So when you're feeling that gut reaction, chances are something's going on, even if the kid's telling you all the other reasons that it's not. I want you to pay attention to that gut. And if you're feeling that way, you're noticing some of the things that we saw, what you need to do is contact your home finder right away, immediately, and let them know what your concerns are. And recognize it's absolutely not at all reflection upon you as a person or as a foster parent. The one piece sometimes we miss because we get caught up, we're scared, we're anxious, we're staying up all night, is actually stopping for a moment and pausing and having a conversation with the kid. What's going on? What did I miss? What can I do? I'm here for you. The continued message that I'm not going to give up on you. to remember that they've been through so many other things. And although this might be hard for you, what they need more now than they've ever needed is someone, an adult, a safe adult, to not give up. Because I'm going to be honest with you. If you give up, if you walk away, if you say this isn't for me, there's one person waiting for them. There's one person that's going to pull up in front of your house and pick that child up, and it's going to be that pimp. And so think about that. It's the streets, or is it you? And I'll leave you with one thing. Our kids always say, you're not here to save me, and I don't want to be rescued. I just need someone not to give up.
So me and my sister went to the foster home. The lady was nice, everything. I just feel like she felt like she had to go an extra mile. Like she made it known that she felt bad. Like, you know, she made it too obvious. That's what got me a little mad, but it was whatever. And you know, after that, I was still 12. Like after that, after going into the foster home, she had daughters, and they treated me. They used to make fun of my sister and me, and that used to make me mad. So I used to act out in school, and that same year, I got my first charge.
Honestly, I just thought that, okay, she's coming into my house, I'm gonna tell her the rules, and she's gonna follow the rules because they're not hard rules. Mm-hmm. But she was raised different from my kids. So even my simple rule wasn't simple for her. And I had to adjust to that because I didn't understand that. Like, well, it's a simple rule, why don't you understand that? But she was raised different, so.
Ask them what they did. What'd you do? What'd you experience on your trip away? Just like try to relate, because a runaway is gonna like experience some things, and you experience things on vacation. So it's like a little mini vacation from somewhere they just were scared to be comfortable in, or just afraid. I really feel like that's why people run away from foster families. Like they're too afraid to like get comfortable just because they don't know what it feels like.
You know, you can't overwhelm them. You can't give them everything. You can't take everything. There has to be like a middle, and take care of you, because sometimes you get so lost, especially when you have your own family, and then when you have a child who has needs, you tend to forget about yourself, and then you get exhausted. And then when you're exhausted, you really can't help anybody.
Just sit down with them and talk to them and be like, hey, this is how it goes. And, you know, if you ever need just be open with them. Like, if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm not here to judge you. Like, I will take care of you, and, you know, you can learn a lot from me, and I can learn a lot from you. People giving up on you is like the worst thing, because it makes you not care anymore. It makes that child not care anymore, and they go out and just do whatever because they feel like they have nobody, and everybody gives up on them, and they won't give anyone else a chance because they feel like that other person's gonna give up on them too. So just like try to work with them. Don't accuse. Even if you think something's going on, don't ever accuse the child that you're taking care of, or just be like, well, you do this, I know you do it. That's very frustrating. I just think that that's like number one. Like, don't accuse, because if you approach it wrong, you could like hit something and they might run away, or like get scared. You might scare them off, or I don't know, they might shut down. You just need to be like kind of like understanding. Instead of like judging children a lot, because I realized, like, based on what happened to me, I was judged a lot. So instead of you judging, I think people should just listen to kids, because at the end of the day, they're gonna do what they want, and they're not gonna listen to nobody. But if you're someone that they can trust, maybe they will be open to listen to you and listen to what you have to say, and take your word. Or if they need help, just be that person that they can go to and say, she won't judge me. And I can talk to her. And, you know, she can actually help me if I'm in trouble.
I guess just support, you know? I mean, either she's gonna do it or she's not, but just giving her that positive support, even when she fails, you know? I just tell her all the time, like, I'm not expecting A's, but I'm expecting that you did your best. And your best is when you don't understand that you ask for help. And then, if you come back with a C or a D, I know that you reached out, then that's your best. And I'm happy for your best.
Don't forget that you're a foster parent. Like, you know, you know what you were signing up for when you were going to become a foster parent, and just I be open-minded. Like, be open-minded and stay in your place, because just don't forget you're a foster parent. You're not my mother, you're not my father, and you're not my therapist. And I mean, you get to know me and everything, but like, know your boundaries. Like, have boundaries with me. Just don't judge me based on what's written on the paper, because it has everything I just told you is written on that paper. So get to know me by like what I say and how I act around you, because it's like, if they start, treating me, based on what they read, they're not going to be treating me very nicely,
So I guess what I want to leave you with, as someone who has lived this life as a survivor of the commercial sex industry, I wish I had a person in my life, and that person did not have to be a blood relative. It didn't have to be my mother, my father. If I just had someone that believed in me and cared enough about me to where they never closed the door on me, that I could show up at any given time, not feel judged. And judgment sometimes is not always what you say, sometimes it's in the gesture. When a child is telling you what's going on with them, you have to also be careful of your body language and how your body is responding to that child. Our foster parents are really, when I think of this population, particularly the girls and the boys who cannot, like, going home is not an option for them. A foster parent is all they have. And a foster parent can make a difference. And as you know, as a foster parent, I'm sure a lot of you have made a difference in a lot of children's lives. But children who have been exploited, to make a difference in their lives is the most powerful thing anyone could do. And for me, working with young people, it means a lot to me to know that they believe in me and that they know that I'm here for them no matter what. And it is a feeling that I don't want to experience by myself. It's a feeling that I would want a foster parent or anyone to feel when they have reached out and been supportive to a child who has been exploited.
The fact that she wanted me to stay was amazing.
How did you know she wanted you to stay?
She told me.
All the time, or?
Well, like, for the time that I was there, she was like, I really want you to stay here. And I was like, me too, girl. What?
How does it make you feel?
It makes me feel proud, because I feel like I'm doing something.
And even as an adult and who have been out of the life for 24 years, I have to tell you how important it is to have allies and non-survivors in my life to support me in the work that I do now. That means the world to me, to see that even years later that someone believes in me, and that has, by someone who has not been in the life, kind of being on my team, that has helped me become who I am today. So let's help children get out of the life, find out what their purpose is in life, and be successful in life. And then to be able to say, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my foster parent.